So in this video, I would try to use Firebase and Databutton to create this entire authentication and passing user data from our Databutton app to the Firebase. So Databutton already has a full docs on it. So if you see out here, adding authentication, that's one of the part, how to create your Firebase authentication. If I go to Auth Wrapper, in the beginning, there is this particular error, and this is the error it shows. And it really comes when you don't have this particular config file. And that is pretty much necessary out here. And that's something which we need to have. But this is a good thing that Databutton already has this Auth Wrapper as a template. And in case you don't have, you can just check the whole template out here as well. The entire Auth Wrapper template code. So what I would do is I would go to Firebase. Firebase is from Google, a very popular place to create user authentication and store your user data. So that's one of your go-to place. So I will just say like test user data. Just select any of the name and you hit the continue button. Once you do that, you just go here, default Firebase account, you create the project. This usually takes few minutes. Once this part is done, we'll just follow that. We'll just hit the continue button. And once we come here, we hit this web button. It's just here we just give a name like test or like test demo or something, and I just hit the register. Once we finish this part, we will get all these config files. This is the config file which we need. And I'll just hit the continue to console button. And once we click that, we are now inside this project. If you go to Databutton and if you go to your Firebase config file, this is basically empty, and I will just paste it here. And now if I come up here, there are a few things which I need to allow or just go through those part. Like one of them is authentication. And when you first time get started, you just need to click this button, get started. And you have to, let's allow, maybe we just need Google for time being. We just enable it. So this will be like sign in with Google, but we can also add on email and password. That's also something we can do. Adding authorized domain in Firebase. So this is the next step which we need to do. What I would do is I just go here, I go to settings and I go to authorized domain. So settings, authorized domain. And here I would just press add domain. Documentation says we need one of them is databutton.com. So I'll just add that here. And the other thing which we need, so when you deploy any Databutton app, you just hit this one-click deployment. So you will see that your app will typically, unless you have a custom domain, your app will typically have username databutton.app and then the name of your app. So here I'll just need this avro.databutton.app. In your case, it will be your name, databutton.app. So I'll just copy this part. I will go back here and I will add this domain as well. That's what exactly it was written here. avro.databutton.app, which is basically your username, databutton.app. Once all this part is done, you have to add your Firebase project name. In this documentation, it's written that you can do it via prompt, but I find it way more easier if I just go to the configuration. You need to add this secret. So I would just add the value, which is basically name of the app. Test user data yt-demo. That's the name of the Firebase project. So I will just go to again to config. I will add this. The other thing which we need to add is also the name of it. This name has to be very precise. So we call it Firebase project name. And we come back here and we do like this, and that's all we need. And that's how we add the Firebase project. So once this part is done, we are ready based on the authentication. That's all we need to do to set up this authentication. Let's now test it. Let's see if that error still persists, which we saw in the very beginning. It doesn't persist. So it will automatically go away once we add this config details. So now what we can do is, right now, this Auth Wrapper is not the main app. It's a component. It's a UI component. You have to import that in your main app. I'll show you how I do it. Can you But the idea is very simple. You need to convey this message that you have this Auth Wrapper component, which I use the hashtag, which shows the Auth Wrapper component, and you want to wrap this component up with your main app. So the main homepage is there. Okay, so we have something now. Okay, let's see. So it actually did add a heading, and it also added a sign out button. So I'm not sure if it will work or not, but I'll just try with continue with Google. If you see out here, it tries to do that. And yes, let's see, continue. Okay. Oh, wow. So it did seem like it did work. I'll just go here and I will go to sign in method, or sorry, the users. And now we have just now we have a new user here. And let's go back here, and let's see the logout works or not. Oh yeah, the logout also works. That's pretty cool, right? I'll just try with another email. So as you can see here, right now there is no other. I'll just refresh it again. There is no other email here. What I would do is I will say test@gmail.com, and I will just put the password as 123 and I hit the continue button. It's signing in. And now if I go back here and I just refresh it, I hope yes, perfect. You see, the provider here is just via the email, and this is via the Google. And now if I log out, yes, all of this work. Now I would like to add few more changes here inside this app, and then we go to adding our user data back to our, let's say, our Firebase out here. Every time you store any user data which user passes, I'll just show you a very simple example to do that. So let's say I just sign up and then it just goes here. Let's make a very simple app now, so that it looks like it's a valid app. I would like to yeah, let's try it. So I would just like to have user's profile picture on the top somewhere. Also print the user's email ID, because what we would do next is when we store any user data, we'd use this user email ID to store all the data. And I think that's how it would be much more convenient to have this user related data stored back in our Firebase. So you can also use this user unique ID that also you can get from here. We can use either of it, but right now I'm just showing with the user email ID, which is much more convenient to answer which user is using. Okay, so we have the user email here, as well as the logout button here. Okay, that's not bad. And you see the user profile picture is also there. That's super cool. So the next thing which we would do is, can you put all this up in the and once that's done, we'll try to store any user's information back to our database. Okay, so we have something now. Okay, so we have this nav bar ready, and we have this profile image of user, a logout button. Okay, let's see how it works. Okay, we just need a text input URL input box. So what we can do is we can just write a simple backend function to scrape something, and then we just trigger that submit button, which will trigger the scraping. And let's say we later we can also add LLM to summarize it, or do a lot of things like the post processing of that can be done in a lot of ways. We can just add a lot of new ideas to it. So I see there's an error. Let's see how the agent will fix it or not. So the agent is trying to fix this error right now. Okay, we have something. Okay, write a very basic backend to scrape a particular data. So let's do that. I will ask, can you use okay, then I'm just writing a very simple backend function now. And it also says, what's the plan? It's an input URL link, output is the scraped content for the given URL. Let's see how it works now. Okay, so it has something now at least. Please do. It would like to test it now, so I said please do it. Let's see. So it says that it should work. Okay then, not bad. Let me just try with Sam Altman's blog, and let's go here. And I don't know if this would work, but we can just try with it. Test with this. Yeah, let's see if it can make it work like the real input. And it does work. If I would have just said the print, I think that would have been great, but we can directly test it in our app itself. Can you please integrate scrape website to the submit button trigger? Make sure that the output is properly displayed under the button in a card like container. Okay, so now I'm asking it to integrate the scrape website, a backend which we just now created, and display the content out here. Okay, it's very simple. It says the source code editing failed, making sure we have the most up-to-date code for app. Okay, now it's reading the whole code now. That's good. Actually, I made some changes, so I think that's something which triggered the agent to read the whole code and then go for the changes. So maybe that's something which also the agent takes into consideration if any change is made from the user end. So now it's writing the code. It's validating the new code, and now it's saving the app, and it's reloading after the app change. And let's see, moment of truth. I really don't like this particular thing, so I would just leave it like that now, and I will just copy this. I will come back here and I will submit the button. Oh yes, this is super cool. You see, the whole stuff is here. Okay, this is perfect. This is super cool. Now what we need to do, so now we have our user prompt or user URL. Let's consider that as a prompt or URL. And we also have the output of it. Now it's time to store this user data. I think like in this app, that can be valuable. And in your app there, I think I'm pretty sure we'll have a lot of real data to store. But for an example demo case, I will just store this particular URL. I'm very curious what my user would be using as a URL, which is not nice to do, and the output of it. Okay, just as a demo, I will show it now. Let's see if we can achieve that or not today. So we now need to go to Firestore Database. You will just find it under the build section, and if you just go to Firestore Database here, you just create a database. Okay, and I will just use Europe, and I just go to next. We store in the production mode and just hit the create button. Okay, so we have this part now. Okay, so once we're here, let's ask Databutton that I would like to store. How can we do that? If we can do that or not, how we can store it. So I'll just go and create a new endpoint, which is Firestore storage. Like basically we store all the data out there, and we do this way. So, hey, I would like to store my data to my Firestore database. Guide me how to do so. And I just ask this to Databutton. Let's see if it can guide me or not. So it asked me that to store user data in Firestore database, we will need to set up a Firestore client, create an endpoint to handle Databutton data storage, define the input model for the data to be stored. I already have the Firebase storage initialize. What? Do you have a Firestore credential set up in a secrets? How can I? How can I have the Firestore credentials? So I just initially told that I have already initialized it. So that's a wrong information from my end. It's a bit of misunderstanding, but now it tells me to obtain Firestore credential, follow these steps. Create a Firebase project. If you haven't already, go to the Firebase console. enable Firestore. For Firebase project, navigate to Firestore Database, which you already did. And this part also we did, create a Firebase project. Generate a service account key. So this is what we need. We need to create a service account key. Go to Firebase console. Click on the gear icon next to project overview. So let me go here, gear icon, and then it asks me to project and select project settings. So if I go to project settings and then navigate to the service account tabs. Service account tabs, it's out here. And then it asks me click generate new private key. So it was super easy. So let's see, generate new private key. I need to click this and I say generate key. Oh, and I already downloaded it. And now I would like to open it actually. So I go here, I just click it and we have it. So this is the entire thing which we need. And I just copy this. This is not, we are not supposed to show this to anyone, but I will delete all this stuff after this video is done. So it's all good for time being, but make sure that you don't reveal your secret keys or all these JSON service account keys. So we have it. Okay. Super. We have it now. I would love you to store it for me. Okay, so once we have this service key, we need to store it. So I'll just paste it here and hit the send button. And now it says the Firestore credentials have been successfully stored. We can now proceed to set up the API to store user data. So let me go back and make sure that it is working. Okay, I go to config file. And so one of them was the Firestore project and other is the Firestore credentials. So if I now reveal this, you will see the entire this service key which you just generated now. It is out here. Okay, so this has been stored. Everything done by the agent until now. So now what I need to do is I need to go back to this. I will ask it to set up the next steps for us. What fields do you want to store for each user? Each user needs okay, so I explained what I want. You have to be very precise about the hierarchy and the architecture of your database. That's something which we need to be very precise, otherwise it cannot set it up. Right now, if I just quickly draw over TL draw, this is how it is set up. We have the email of each user will need to be there, and under each email there are two fields. One of them is the URL which the user passes, and the other one should be the content. So this is how each user's email and the URL content will be saved. And it's not only one, so it will be like as many users as you want, and each of them will have URL content, URL content, URL content. It's like the architecture is like that, and there will be not one, there will be multiple URL and content for each user. So that's what the plan is. It's a very simplistic one, but I think in our real app we will have way more complicated hierarchy. But this is a very simple demo one where we're showing how we want to save it. So it's already started to write the code for us. By the way, I just missed that part. So it installed Google Cloud Firestore package, and then it's going to correct the Firestore client initialization and handle credentials properly, improve error handling and add print statement. So it's just going on doing those stuff. So, okay, the Firestore client has been properly initiated, and the endpoint to store user data is now set up with improved error handling and debugging. Would you like to test the endpoint now? Okay then, so it has most of the stuff. So I already see this huge error which is coming up. If I just click this red part, it's showing that file name is too long. I think this is mainly because how this part is here. Let me mention to you that the Firestore is because if you see the format which I just passed to as the secret, it's basically a JSON format, okay, key and a value. So it's basically a JSON format. So I think I should just mention that. And it says that thank you for the code should already handle JSON format. Please read the error over the console. So I asked you to read this error over the console and adapt the code to it maybe. Okay, so now if I see correctly, it has added this JSON that loads Firestore credential, and now it has become green. So that's what I also felt, that there was some error out here. I did also install the packages. I can just go back here, config, and if I just now go down, you see there's a new package out here. Cool. So we have something already now, and I think it's time that we test this. This is exciting. We test this endpoint. Let's test this endpoint, and we proceed for testing this endpoint. It's calling the API key, and it's saying that the endpoint has been successfully tested. Okay, so let's go here and let's go to Firestore Database. And yes, it is working. Let's do another round of test for the same email. Okay, so I want to be sure that is it properly saving each of these data or not. And let's see. Let's go back here. And I just refresh this. I want to be sure that it's working or not. Yeah, so I think it is doing it, but what it is doing, it's not appending to it. It's just making it like it's basically removing the last one and just adding over it. I just want it to append every time. Hey, this is great, but I would I think we need to change this particular structure a bit. So right now it's users, test, basically email, and then content is only one. We need to have where we so to store multiple US contents, each email, we can modify the endpoint to append new endpoints to an existing list of URLs, retrieve the existing data for the user, append new URL and content to the existing list, update the document with the new list. Yeah, I think that might work. Let's see. So it would have been better if we had test example, then we have URLs, and then under URLs we just go on storing, and under contents we go on storing the content. So I think that would have been great. We can just also direct it to do it. And as you can see, this is a particular line of code, the Firestore client collection. This is a collection where we make. So each of these are nothing but collection. And then you have a document, which is basically this document where we have the email. Under each email, there is a set basically, and where the URL and the content. It has made some changes now. Let's see. Yes, please. Oh, sorry for the spelling, but it's yes, please. Yeah. Okay, so I'll just go back here. Now it has like this. I will just ask for to the same email, can you store a new content and URL? So I just ask for a new content and an URL. Let's see if it can test it or not. It's again calling, it's testing it. This is the moment of truth. And we have, this is another test content. This is another email. Perfect. So, sorry, another URL. So it's perfect. So it's working at least in our test. So we have our Firebase storage. So let me just kind of make this whole thing a bit simplified. So what we did. So first we handled with the auth, since in our app, we mainly care about the auth. So we created this auth first here, which is now in the main app. We can log out as well. This is the auth. This is all coming from the Auth Wrapper. So if I just quickly make a diagram. So we started with the auth. Okay. And let me just move a bit here. And this auth is basically having user email. And for doing this, we already have a Auth Wrapper, which we saw in this particular Databutton docs. So we followed that blindly. And now our next aim is to create another backend. So I'll just create here. So this is the backend, which is responsible for storing data, basically using the email of our user. And this is now stored in our Firestore database. Firestore database out here, Firestore database. So that's what we are doing. And right now as a test data, we are just using the user email and user's prompt, or user's URL which it is using, and also the content of the script content basically. So that's what we are doing now. It's a very simple demonstration of this working principle, but in reality it would be a bit more complicated. But one thing which we need to keep in mind is this backend. This backend is very important. This backend is super important. Okay, this backend, I'm just marking with red in color. This backend is very important, and this is nothing but our Firestore database. And that's how from the front end we are passing it to via the backend, we are passing to the database. Now next, let's make it work with the real data, and we also need to make sure that the data is passed properly. Okay, so what we do is, so this is, I logged in from the UI component. So in the UI component, this is how it would show. But if I go to the main app, this is our main app, because our UI component is being used in our main homepage now that I showed before. So I would so the input will be the email, the URL, and the script content output. This is comparatively a bit more complicated than how it is now. So if you just quickly go here, the brain is the particular package by which all these APIs or the backends are maintained. So if you see this brain.scrape website, that's where this gets triggered, the scrape website. Now we are expecting there will be another backend, or the APIs will be called, which will be brain.firestore database or store user data. So you can see out here, it's called store user data. That would be triggered as well, which would take input as the URL, the output, which is basically the response from here, or the data, and also the content all together will be passed. Now it's the moment of truth. So what we see now is this brain is already added. It takes the email, the URL, and the content. Technically, it should work now, but we don't know. Okay, let's try to make it work now. So what I would do is I would just try with some other app. Let's say browse the archive, or we just go to this one. Okay, and this is the whole stuff. And I just copy this URL. I just paste it here. I submit the button. You will just need to look out here. It's doing the post scrape website. It is done. Data is also stored using the user email of databutton.io. That's my email. And if I go back now, I have two users now. Test example, which we use, and we have databutton.io. And here is the full content, and here is the URL used. Super cool, right? It works. Let's try with a new one. What shall I use? I should use Databutton main page. We have blogs out here, Databutton blogs. And we should try this, one of this blog. How to identify your breakthrough AI startup. Yeah, this is a good idea. Like, we should create some more SaaS app with Databutton. And I will just pass this here. And I will hit the submit button. It's scraping. The whole entire scraping is done. It is stored, it says. So I just go now to test user data. It's over. Here we have 2-1. So this was the first one. This is the second one also. It's not properly structured yet. I would do in a bit different way, but you get the point, right? And now you also have two URLs, I would say 0 and 1. It is that simple. So everything is done with Firebase now. You have the Firebase auth first, as I showed, and that's completely based on this documentation. Next thing which we did now is nothing but to add a Firebase storage just by getting suggestion from the very scratch from our Databutton agent. and then we slowly build it. One of the steps which I have did here, which is very crucial, was to go to here, settings, project settings, and then go to service accounts. And there where I just created a generate new private key, that is important, which was stored back here, back in our secrets. And just to again repeat myself here, all this is your secrets. These are your secrets. So please don't share them. Store them over Databutton secrets all the time. That's very crucial. And once you have your users' email, I think you are just good to go. The next part would be to set up some sort of payment with your app. That would be the best way, ultimate way to connect all these three things together. Just write down in the comment section what else would you like to see. Cheers.